Peter gets a call from his wife, Gwen Stacy, telling him that she's called him 3 times, only to be told he had a thing. She brushes this off as Peter's typical responsibilities and reminds him not to forget the vinegar for the Knishes for their anniversary that night. As Peter swings through the city, he is reminded of how the city used to sound, alive and loud before the unraveling, only to now be filled with cold wind and his own breathing. It was a mysterious event, with no true reason or cause, but Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, believes it may have had something to do with Molecule Man. All they do know is one day the world began to fall apart. Bridges, buildings, even people. Spider-Man can't fix everything, but he'll try. This is where his weapon came in. The only problem is it melts away after only a short time, leaving the world just as crumbling as it was before. Spider-Man drops down to the street to find another broken soul underneath a newspaper, groaning in pain. He lifts him up, only to notice his jaw is entirely missing. As tears stream down the man's face, he asks if Otto tried taking him hostage again. Spider-Man webs the tearful man up and goes looking for the rest of his body, quickly finding the jaw, but still missing his arm. Peter quickly finds Otto, ranting and raving about a maniacal plan, belting out that he has a hostage. But it's only the man's arm. Otto is quickly webbed to the bridge, incapacitating him, but Otto's ego will simply not stand for this. He begins pulling away from the web, straining his already frail body, and then a pop, followed by a putrid green liquid ejecting from where his mechanical arms used to be. The once egotistical and proud supervillain laid on his knees weeping, asking Spider-Man not to laugh, only to be told simply, "You know I won't." He webs up Otto's arms back to his body as he sees a familiar insignia in the sky. It's Reed, calling to him. Peter enters the Baxter building, saying to Reed that he could just call him. He has a perfectly good phone, only to be met with a pile of bone and bodily soup. But Reed seems to be doing fine, as it simply takes less strain on his brain to simply be a soup. Reed begins to go on a long-winded monologue about the science of being a soup, only to be told to speed it along as Peter is having dinner with Gwen. Reed is perplexed by this in regards to the world, but I suppose she technically still is his wife. But he asks why he insists on this ridiculous fantasy of an anniversary meal. Peter begins yelling at Reed and grabs him, telling him how he never sleeps and he is withering away, simply waking up and knitting the city back together all by himself. And every night his webs dissolve, only for him to wake up and do it again. Meanwhile, Reed is simply a nihilist puddle in the basement. Or so Peter thought. Reed reveals to him that he has been working on something, a way to extend the lifespan of his webbing, by combining it with the fibers of his own finger. Peter is disgusted but intrigued, being told to find anyone else out there like Reed with elasticity and bring them back to Reed to perhaps solve the webbing issue and allow Peter to finally rest. As Peter leaves, he's given a sonic gun, knowing who Reed is telling him to go after. We enter the sewer, with Peter speaking to Gwen on the phone, again hearing the words to not forget the vinegar, followed by Gwen saying that something is wrong and not to be late. But he says he'll just be a few more minutes. Happy anniversary. Venom leaps from behind, seemingly unaffected by the unraveling, striking a tired and slow Peter. A struggle ensues, with Peter using his last bit of strength to rip the ceiling down on both of them. Our protagonist yells to Eddie that this is bigger than them, and then he needs the symbiote, only to hear Venom call to him. But it wasn't Eddie. Eddie is gone. The symbiote had kept Eddie as fresh as long as it could, never leaving, never strayed, not because it couldn't, but because Eddie wasn't simply a host. He was Venom's home. Peter begs Venom, saying that he can be Venom's new home, and that he wasn't ready before, but he is now. But he is simply told, no, as Venom dies with Eddie, he's home. Peter sits with this event for a moment before realizing he was late to see Gwen. A wave of deja vu hits him as he speeds through the cocoon city, screaming to Gwen to answer the phone. But something feels familiar, like he knows how this ends. That a web has many strands, but those strands They all lead to one center point. And there, he finds he was one loop too slow, one loop too many. Gwen was gone, unraveled. All he could say was he forgot to get the vinegar. Only one thing left to do, I guess. Peter lands in Reed's lab. Reed begins to apologize regarding what he said about Gwen earlier. Then maybe his family was the only thing holding him together. However, lurking behind Reed was our hero, creeping up with a syringe. A city as it used to be, held together. Reed was right. Things are better now. People are smiling again. Otto is himself again. And Peter finally has time to mourn, remembering his family as he swings towards the Baxter building. Quietly, he hears, "Peter, Peter, please, it hurts." Reed's hollowed voice speaks from within the webbing. Peter simply responds, "I know, Reed, but you have a responsibility to the city," fully losing himself to madness.